So welcome again to the RESILIFE Tea Talks. This is one of the events that I have been liking the most because we are able to talk about different topics that are very interesting and they are being proposed for the students as well. So mental health, the one that we are going to be talking today, was one of the ones most voted when we were thinking about topics. Just a little reminder, we have been talking about how to stay active during the lockdown with King Sport. We then talk about Black Lives Matter. Then we talk about the LGBT plus community because of the Pride Month as well. Last week we had the climate change as sustainability. And today we are going to be talking about mental health. Just a reminder to everyone that's listening on Instagram Live or on Zoom, you are very welcome to ask any questions that you want, to share experiences, initiatives, or comments. While the speakers are talking, the idea is to have your mics off, but you can use the Zoom chat, or you can ask questions through Instagram Live, or you can raise your hand with the icon that is working on Zoom, so you can unmute yourself and ask a direct question, no problem. I really hope this talk today helps everyone to start thinking more about our mental health, and something that brings everyone together is talking about mental health and about how are we feeling with the global pandemic as well as something that students want to talk about. We will have different people talking today, from mental health professionals to students, because this is not something that is only addressed by professionals. This is something that everyone should be talking about. So we will have different experiences as well. And of course, for the ones that are watching on YouTube after, I know that you're not going to be able to ask questions live, but some of the speakers are going to be sharing some of their contacts. If you have questions after that, please feel free to contact them. So I'm going to start by saying hello to all of the speakers that we have here. We will have 5 speakers. One of them is going to share a video after that because sadly, because of the time zone, she couldn't be here, but we are going to have these lovely 4 speakers here with us. So I just wanted to let them present themselves, starting with Sula, if you want to tell a little bit about you.
Sure.
And also where this interest in mental health came from as well.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Sula. I'm a health psychologist and a cognitive behavioural therapist. I mean, it's a funny question, why an interest in mental health, because I think, mental health just exists and it was never really a choice. It was just something that I was always acutely aware of. So yeah, my mum was a mental health nurse and my dad's a psychiatrist, so maybe that's why it wasn't so much of a choice. But I started pursuing my career in health psychology after doing a psychology undergrad because I started having chronic health problems, which really severely impacted everything really, and made me very unwell and made me very depressed. And I started using kind of psychological approaches to help myself deal with that time, and that really kind of demonstrated to me just how important the link between mental health and physical health was, and that informed my research and clinical practice. And yeah, from there I've just kind of carried on working in that field.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience as well with us. Alejandra, if you want to present yourself a little bit.
Okay. I am the older one here, of course, but I'm very happy to be with young people. I really love to work with younger people because I am always learning for real. It's true. So I'm not millennial. I'm from another generation, but I'm a clinical psychologist. But I never dreamed to be one. When I was young, very young, and went out of school, I just got an hour from a psychologist that was focalized in vocational issues. And there it appeared, because the only one I knew is that I wanted to study a humanistic and social career. And from the test and the interviews, it appeared that psychologist or psychology, uh, um, and journalism were two of the careers that were good for me. And I didn't know why in that moment I chose psychology. I still love journalism, but I'm a psychologist, and I'm very happy for that. I got in love with my profession, I think, when I was studying and I saw the first patient in a psychiatric ward. And I not only saw, but I felt the pain of this person. I still remember it 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And I didn't know that years later, I was going to be a patient, not in a ward, but I could I could stood at home because I lived two severe depressions in my life. So when I was experiencing this, I understood that probably that was one of the reasons I studied to be a psychologist, to help other people, and I understood what is emotional pain. And I think that is very important for us to not only study, but to feel, not because you are going to have to be depressed, but by empathy or whatever, so we can make a relationship with the other one. And I think that that's the most important way of helping others.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's really inspiring to hear other people talking so freely about how they feel, how they felt in the past. And I think that's something that we aim as well with this talk and in our profession, so people won't feel shame of sharing how they feel or our deepest thoughts as well. Thank you so much. We are going to be hearing more about Alejandra as well after. Emma, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
I'm Emma. I'm a second year student midwife here at KCL. So I'm just going to touch a little bit today during my talk on my personal experiences of having varied mental illnesses and how that kind of fits into my life as a student midwife and as a healthcare professional, and sort of reaching out to others as well who are thinking about going into a health professional degree or a health professional position, as to how you can allow your mental illness to fit into your profession rather than have it consume it. So yeah, just a little short snippet from me. You'll hear more from me later. Can I just give you an update on my pita chips, by the way?
Of course.
I was sitting here. I know we're on live. I know we're on Instagram live. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sitting here. I can smell burning. I've gone in there. They're black.
Oh no.
I thought,
people that don't know, Emma was cooking and she was waiting to turn the cook off.
Yeah, so no pita chips for me tonight, guys, but it's fine. I can deal with it. So
sorry for that.
That was my bit.
Thank you for the update. Ellie?
I feel like I can't follow that now. No, I'm kidding. My name's Ellie. I'm 22. I'm from London and I'm doing my master's in public mental health at Queen Mary's. So I'm kind of near the end of that. But today, unlike Sula, sadly, I didn't really take mental health seriously until mine took a not for six. And I struggle with a few mental illnesses as well. But today I'm going to be talking about my podcast that I started. that kind of encourages open, honest, stigma-free conversation around particularly young person's mental health. So Alejandra, I am going to be talking about millennials, and it's just kind of like the specific things that we go through kind of when we're trying to adult, and that's like transitional periods, kind of your early 20s. So you've covered lots of things. I've done about 17 or so far. So yeah, I'm just going to be talking through kind of how that's been helpful for me to kind of like cope through my mental health struggles, and yeah, give a platform for other people to do the same.
Yeah, when you were saying millennials, Alejandra was saying hello. So
I know, I was like, yeah,
we didn't have that.
that's me.
Very important, and thank you for sharing your initiative with us, because I think a lot of people are going to be hearing today, especially in that transition, maybe just out of high school, starting studies in the university or living abroad. So of course, I think they're going to be hearing some of your thoughts and saying, yeah, I have thought about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the fifth speaker that she's going to be present by a video. Her name is Daniela Segu. She is also from Chile. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's also a yoga teacher. And she started studying psychology. And for her, during all of those years of formation as an undergrad, she always thought something was missing, like the part of the body was missing. And even though we had neuroscience and all of that, it was not the same as actually working with your body. And she found that in yoga. And after she graduated as a psychologist, she started pursuing that career. And now she found a way to do those together. So she's going to share a little bit of her experience. And to finish with the presentations, I just wanted to share a little bit of my story as well. So for people that don't know, I'm also a mental health professional. I studied psychology in Chile as well, psychotherapy, how we call it there. I'm currently studying a master's in mental health in family therapy in King's College as well. And I think my first interest in mental health was because I was feeling that the mental aspect, or how we were feeling, sometimes was left behind. So if you say, I'm feeling sad, some people can tell you, but I don't see that, because it's not something completely physical or completely equal between people. Some people cry, some people talk a lot, some people even laugh. And I think my first motivation to start studying this was to be able to validate all forms of feeling, and not because you're feeling a little bit better than your neighbor, that means that what you're feeling is not valid. And of course, that feeling has evolved, and now about human rights and about the context, and having all of those together, everything that you're feeling for me is valid. And I think therapy and any conversation can give you that support to don't feel blame or don't feel guilty because you're feeling sad and somebody has less than you, because sometimes we deal with that as well. But also addressing everything that is going on with racism, with classism, sexism, and all of that into account. So that was my inspiration to start studying this. And I'm really happy that I took that decision. It was a hard decision at the beginning, but I'm happy now. So again, thank you to everyone that's here. Also listening, I think it's very important that we learn how to listen as well. So thank you for everyone that's here. And now we are going to start with a little bit more with Sula. So if anybody else can mute their mics while she's speaking so we don't have interference. But of course, again, if anybody has a question, you can write that on Zoom on the chat, or you can press the icon reaction to raise your hand. And in Instagram Live, you can ask your questions as well, and I will be sharing that with her. So Sula, the stage is yours.
Remind me, so how long have I got to speak?
You have around 15 minutes, and I'm going to be also talking with you to have a conversation in case. Yeah.
So I guess, full disclaimer, I haven't prepared anything because I just think it's probably better if it's interactive. So if anybody's got any questions or anything, do put them in the chat or unmute your microphone, and I'm happy just to have it more as a dialogue. But I guess just to get started, what struck me with all the introductions is everybody's own personal journey with mental health, and how that actually is inspiring for people to then take an interest in that and work with that going forwards. And I think just like everybody's kind of commented on that is a beautiful thing. So it's very endearing and powerful to create conversation and dialogue and career paths around your own experience. You know, that empathy is real. And I think the other thing that struck me was this, you know, thinking about life transitions. And from my own experience, I know when my health problems were kicking off, that was in a very difficult period for me, just finishing university. All of my university friends had moved to different parts of the country. I was no longer studying psychology, and I was in a kind of corporate job that I didn't really like, and my whole identity just shifted. And I think we don't really perhaps consider just how much the foundations of ourselves are informed by how we think about who we are, and how that's informed by our environment, the people we're around. And university is such a huge part of that, and that can be a positive part or a negative part, or a bit of both. But on the other end of that, if we don't have like an exciting transition to go to, or everything feels a bit uncertain or in flux, it can really be a rocking time. And also on the front end, just coming to university, I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues, actually thinking about our perceptions of coming to university, and that we were going to suddenly find our group of people. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't actually think I found my group of people, because everyone was just so different. And I thought everyone would be like-minded, we'll all be interested in the same stuff, we'll probably all look similarly. And obviously now, I'm so glad that wasn't the case, and that's not actually a great thing to look for in a friendship group, looking the same and thinking exactly the same. So it was a positive experience, but it was contrary to what I was expecting. So again, lots of kind of interesting realizations you're making along the way, and you're always having appraisals about things, and that's always kind of constantly feeding into how you're feeling, which then feeds into how you're thinking about yourself and who you are. And when we start making really negative judgments on ourselves, or maybe I don't fit in, or maybe I'm not as good as such and such, or maybe this isn't for me, maybe I won't know what that is, very quickly that thought process unnoticed, I think, can spiral. So from my own journey, kind of getting into a career in health psychology and mental health, I certainly found mindfulness really, really useful for becoming aware of some of those automatic thought patterns, and through kind of the experiential practice, just becoming more believing actually that my thoughts were thoughts rather than facts. And it's a funny little kind of saying that I often put out there, but I think until you do a bit of a practice and establish that real familiarity with what goes on in your mind, and get the opportunity to see that that's not necessarily as accurate as it really, really felt at the time, they have tremendous power over us. So yeah, that's my monologue.
Yeah, I was thinking about how you started saying that you were dealing with your own expectations and problems, and how you found like a strength in that, and you made that a career and a life choice, if you could say so. And I was remembering some myth that I have been hearing, like regard a lot of people that now are mental health professionals, for example, and that some way in their journey, somebody, usually somebody with power, for example, another professional or maybe a professor, told them that, but you shouldn't be doing that because like you have problems, like you have been depressed or you have too much anxiety. How are you going to be able to help someone if you cannot help yourself? And I think that sometimes gets in the way of somebody pursuing a career or trying to learn more about mental health or any other thing. I don't know if you felt that at any moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not at the beginning of my career, certainly not. It was the passion that drove me, but later in my career, and I'm still quite early in my career, I would say, but more recently, I would say definitely it causes crisis of whether I feel skilled or not. And I think that's certainly kind of come up talking with colleagues about their own mental health. there's this assumption that working in mental health, you should have everything together and you know all the strategies and all the techniques. So if you're feeling down or you're feeling a bit anxious, just use the strategies and you'll be fine. And I think we need to kind of pull ourselves away from that assumption, because obviously that just adds, that's problematic, because it adds that kind of layer of self-criticism, which is always going to be you know, it's never going to be a positive journey from there. But I think also understanding that we can still use the strategies and techniques and understanding to help ourselves and contain ourselves whilst feeling pretty shit for a long period. And that might just be our state, but that doesn't mean that we're failing in any way. It means that we're, you know, we're still managing to contain ourselves, and we're still learning important data about ourselves, which will help us kind of, you know, coming out on the other end of it and in the future again, and all of that will help our practice still. So to give a personal example, you know, lockdown has been awful. Just, it takes away all of the things that you enjoy. I get a lot out of seeing my friends, seeing people, just the little interactions in the office, and suddenly we're all expected just to get on without those what seem like little things, but they're huge things. Social support, there's huge research base showing just how important social support is for buffering the effects of stress on our mental health and our physical health, and that's kind of gone. We can video chat, but it's not quite the same, and it's also reduced down because you don't have those day-to-day interactions. And then also doing therapy every single day with all of these people, you know, who have it much worse than me a lot of the time, in my own bedroom, you know, it makes that work-life balance harder to maintain, the boundaries and everything. So I found it really, really difficult, and my own mood has suffered for sure. And I think when it dips and you're feeling really low and flat and you can't kind of quite get yourself excited again, and you start feeling de-skilled because you're there meant to talk to somebody about their depression and how to get activated and you can't do it, that's a really, really difficult situation to be in. But again, it does come back to the fact that I think that experience builds empathy and it builds a new level of understanding. And actually what I've found is by problem solving with my clients, I can use that to feed back in for me. I can be more innovative when it's somebody else, but I am a big advocate, you know, I think we practice what we preach. So then I do try and turn that inward. So my patients are helping me just as much as I'm helping them.
Yeah, like you said, the learning that we can have as students, but also when, like Alejandra also said, like when we are teaching something, we learn from our students, and definitely I learn with my patients as well. And I think one of the words key in what you said is expectations, and we have expectations of ourselves and the world as well. Like the idea that if you are a psychologist, you won't ever cry because you have all your emotions together. And I think also people sometimes seek that. They will ask, how can I stop feeling sad forever? How can I manage my anxiety to make it disappear forever? So again, the expectations, and I think the word expectations, especially in the Western culture, is to be happy all the time. Yes. And now we are in a global pandemic that is changing everything. And like you said, for people that are working, now you're working from your house, so you don't have any breaks. The real breaks. For people having therapy, you're having therapy in your own house. So if you then have an argument, you will be there. And for the students also, the whole experience of being in campus and stuff. And then we have all the other things that people that are not able to even wash their hands because they don't have water. So how are we expected to be happy all the time and be positive about everything? But sometimes life is just hard.
And I think that's such an important observation, that expectation to be happy and on a level all the time. It's actually really relieving if we can acknowledge that humans aren't meant to be in a state of positive emotion all the time. In fact, that would be pretty boring, I think. If you think about, you know, those sad films that make you really cry your heart out, and all of the, like, you know, even the moments where it's slightly frightening, but that can be exhilarating, and everything, you know, from the really deep, hurtful emotions, that spectrum is what makes life meaningful. And I think, you know, we can see that as well. We can see from people that, you know, are born into privilege and don't ever really have to know what it is to suffer, their world becomes a lot smaller. Not all the time, I'm not going to generalize, but it becomes a lot smaller, and it's more reliant on material goods and, you know, the next thing that is really meaningless, when actually what makes us human is that mix of emotions. I saw we've got a question as well.
Yes. So Frey is asking, you were talking about, for example, learning from your work as well with your, I don't know, individuals, families, couples. What do you think is the biggest tool that you have learned from them? Or if you can give an example, for example.
Oh, it's a good question. Biggest lesson. It's hard to pick the biggest, because I guess it's all incremental. Everybody teaches me something. I think if I would take a very general lesson, it does come back to the capacity to be hard on ourselves and to have these unrelenting expectations that we're not necessarily aware of, and just how problematic those things can be. And I think seeing that reflected back all of the time has been really helpful for me to notice my own. And I think the other side of that is, again, on that same discussion topic about the tolerance of different emotions, we're generally quite intolerant of feeling not good. And there's actually real benefit and strength in being able to tolerate when things aren't so good. And that doesn't mean, you know, embrace it, wallow and ruminate and, you know, shut up shop, but it does mean, you know, accept this is how it is and not fight against it so much, on the understanding that things do fluctuate. And for me, the way that I've been thinking about that for myself recently is, you know, just even boredom, or, you know, I feel like I should be doing loads of stuff. That's one of my problems, chronic problems. So I'm always busy, I'm always doing things. So when I've got a slightest bit of downtime, I'll pick up my phone. There must be an email, or there must be something I should put on Instagram, or there must be something that I haven't followed up. And so what I've been trying to do, off of this kind of reflection about people's expectations and automatic kind of non-tolerance to unpleasant emotions, is trying to just tolerate being bored or slightly uncomfortable with not doing something. And that's something that I'm still working on.
Yeah, I don't think we will ever completely learn that lesson. I feel completely the same. And I think the word productivity comes to mind. And there's so many phrases out there with the pandemic that if you say you couldn't read that book because you didn't have time, now you do, so you have no excuses. Like, we were on holidays with a right state of mind, thinking I have all the time in the world, and that's not the case. We are not in holidays.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a global pandemic crisis, and especially for people that have families in different countries, even if now in London things are getting a little bit better, like in my case in Chile, they are getting worse. So why are we expecting ourselves to be completely productive and to be like nothing happened and to learn a new skill or to lose weight after the pandemic? And those are kind of the things. And we, of course, comparing ourselves because of that. We have a question now of what will be your advice? And of course, this is from you, like, what is your advice on coping and balancing a tremendous amount of academic work? And I think a lot of students have the same question, while maintaining a good mental health.
Yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but it does kind of come back to the expectations that we put on ourselves. And I think what feeds into these expectations can be, you know, these subtle thinking habits that arise. We compare ourselves to other students, or well, they're coping, or well, they got an A, or well, they got whatever. And that is, just as a rule of thumb, never helpful. So if you can notice comparisons and step away from it, definitely do that. I think also trying to understand where your expectations are coming from, and what it would mean to you to not get that. If you're aiming for a 2-1 or you're aiming for a first, sometimes there's really practical things. Well, I need a 2-1 for the graduate scheme or whatever, fine. But if it's like, well, I need a first and it needs to be a comfortable first, where's that coming from? Does it really need to be that? And what does it mean to not get that first? Can we actually look at the other side of things and not necessarily buy into these expectations? But then on a more practical, less introspective, analytical sense, I think it comes down to pacing a lot of the time, and trying to understand that as much as spending that time revising, creating a routine for working is important, one of the things that's really important to enable you to be an effective learner and to enjoy learning is having that time away from work, whether that's socializing in whatever format that is for you at the moment, or whether that's, you know, doing relaxing things and nourishing your interests elsewhere. And also knowing that relaxation doesn't have to be, you know, candles and bathtubs. It can be just learning about something that's not degree related, and not putting the expectations on yourself in that sense as well. So I think it does come down to balance, and a lot of times I find with my clients is there's a real boom bust pattern. So we do loads and loads on the front end, and we get ourselves so exhausted, and then we can't possibly do anything, so we binge watch Netflix for the like weekend, and then, or we might have a blowout and get insanely drunk, and then we feel awful, and then we have to like ramp it up again and overcompensate. So actually trying to maintain a bit more, obviously there's going to be some undulation, but a bit more in the middle, so you don't have to keep feeling like you're making up for things. So a regular balance of things that aren't all work oriented.
Thank you so much for that. I think I want to, well, I hope that you answered the question. I think you did very good. And I just wanted to finish your part with one question. It has to do with this, and it has to do with how can we listen to our bodies? Because sometimes, okay, we say, I have an exam tomorrow, so I don't have any time for binge Netflix. I will do that now. I won't sleep. And I have done that a million times. So we will have coffee or Red Bull or something, and then I will have a huge headache. And maybe I can do that one day, but when that becomes chronic, then you start having a lot of problems with your body as well. So sometimes it's like our body wants to speak to us. So how in your experience, how can we respond to our body in a way that is healthier for us as well?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it does come back to finding some way to build awareness of our experience, whatever that might be, bodily, emotional, what's going on in our minds. You know, I say every day, which might sound really scary, but that doesn't have to be a formal mindfulness practice every day. But it could be, you know, a check-in in the morning, how am I feeling? Or, you know, just creating some time for stillness. What's it like just to sit here and have my coffee rather than multitasking and doing everything? But I do think supporting those moments for pause are things like mindfulness practice, and there's a lot of different types of practice that you can do. One of them is the body scan, and it really gets you back into, you know, noticing your body, and actually that it is a whole thing that's actually quite fascinating. You've got sensations everywhere that you're always tuning out. So regular mindfulness practice, if you like sport, do, you know, sports are a great way to start, you know, taking into account your body and how that's feeling and whatnot. But if you don't like sport, doing something with your body that's not sport, whether that's, you know, walking or you know, just some stretches or whatever, I think allowing that time for focusing in on body and mind in some form, and that can be different for everybody. And I'd just say experiment as well, see what works for you. And sometimes some things work for you one day and you really love it, and then you come back to that and you're so disappointed because it doesn't feel good anymore, but it's still worthwhile because you're still getting important data. Don't throw it out, come back to it, but try something else. So give yourself permission to be flexible as you work out what works for you.
Yeah, I think flexibility is key in any sense, with the routine, with what's happening with COVID. We may be lowering our expectations sometimes and how we treat our body as well. I don't know if you have any last comments before.
No, I just want to apologize that I have to go because I'm teaching mindfulness at 9 and I haven't yet eaten, so I'm doing my usual boom and bust, guys.
To have food.
It's important to have food, so I'm sorry that I can't hang around, but if you want to catch me, I'm on Instagram and my handle is health_psychologist_UK. And yeah, it was lovely to be a part of this and nice to meet you all, and hopefully we'll meet again.
Thank you so much, Lula.
Yes, thank you.
So that was the first part of our talk. We are going to have Alejandro now, And I just wanted to finish what Sula was saying with, it may sound a little bit cliche, but it's a phrase that I read last week that I think it resumes a little bit of what she was saying. It says, try it yourself. So it has to do with try it yourself in a better way. So the phrase is this: pick a plant, like a plant that you have. For example, I will have this, and put your name to the plant. So this plant is going to be called Fran. So how would you treat Fran? Would you take care of it? Would you put some water on it? Would you take it out of the sun if it's too shiny? And only by thinking of that, you're thinking, but wait, how am I treating myself usually? And sometimes we don't even notice, and sometimes we are very keen and kind to other people, but not to ourselves. And that little phrase that I read, it was like, oh, yeah, I think I need to start for me sometimes. And I think it's very helpful to think of that, because it's also your body and how you're treating yourself. So to complement these ideas, we have Alejandra now. She's from Chile. Ask me. So Alejandra, please just start with whatever idea you want, and I'm going to be complementing as well.
Okay. I have, since we talked before and you gave me some of the things you wanted us to talk about, I have something that might sound as theoretical, and some things that are practicals. And I think these practical things are now the most important ones. Sorry for my English. I am from a country that we speak Spanish. I studied a good English, but since I am not millennial, my daughter and my sons are your age, so and so, and I've forgotten a lot of words, so I excuse myself for this, but I hope you understand me.
I'm here to help, and we are an international community, so we have accents.
That's good. That's good. I'm very happy to be here. So the part that sounds as something that is not from the experience, I think it is, because the title of this is mental health, right? And even I don't know details from how in Europe or in England specifically the mental health works for people in the public system or in the private system. In our country or in our continent, mental health is not a big matter for people, for government. This is not from one side or the other one. For the states, right? Not for the government that is in turn now, right now. It's not an important matter because it is, you can see it. I'm going to be very assertive, right? It doesn't give votes, because it's not the same to cut something when you are when you made
a breach.
A breach, right? And that gives people
yeah, people are excited
success, and they, right? And that gives votes. But education and mental health is it can be seen, right? So these things, even there are very important conversations for the members of a political space, for instance. In the practice, it is not a very important thing. I don't want to speak much about that, but that's the introduction. And I want to say that we, professionals from mental health, the students, the people that are hearing this, the people that have a mental pain, a mental struggle, a small one or a big one, we all have the due to make this matter to democratize the matter of mental health. That means this is an open issue for everyone. We can talk about what is happening to me or what is happening to other persons, and everyone has the access to get help, even if it is a conflict, not so a big one, with the son or whatever, or if it is a very important or big or severe issue as stress, anxiety that I can't manage, or anguish, or depression, or the wish to suicide, or the suicide issues that occurs. People don't talk about it because people tend to not talk about what happens to me. So if I don't talk what is happening to me, it's very difficult that I can talk about what's happening to the others, or the contrary. Sometimes people talk what's happening to the others as a negative issue, as a negative situation, but they don't talk about what's happening to them, because mental health is or has a stigma, a very great stigma. So we have to, I don't like the word fight, but we have to react about what is happening in our own country, in the world, in our country, in our circle. To myself, when I feel or the other feels pains or a pain, besides the person doesn't have a broken bone, so there's no scan for my pain. If I feel very anguished, I have some signs, some physical signs, right? But there's no way to prove to the other persons that I am very depressed, that I don't want to continue living, that I don't have energy to take care of my children or to go to my work, that if someone has a license to stay at home, this person doesn't need to have a bone that is broken, so he has to stay at home. The person who is feeling bad and needs professional care, because if I feel bad but I can manage it myself, all right, that's part of life. Negative emotions are part of life. We have to deal with them. Also positive emotions. But if a person really feels bad and is receiving help from a psychiatric or a psychologist, it is because really that person is in a bad mood, in a bad moment. And we have to learn to respect that, to believe that, to talk about it, not in a negative way. Oh, that person, you know, no, that person is sick as a person who has any other sickness that can be viewed as a bone or other situations. I don't have so many words for that, but I think you understand me. So I think as many of you, I declare myself an activist person for many causes, sexual diversity, ethnic diversity. I'm a feminist, but I think we have to become activists in the matter of mental health until we are sure that in all countries, people who don't have the resources, maybe most of all have to go to ask for, well, now an online hour to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But at least they, not at least, but they have, and this may occur to everyone once in our lives. Today, there are many persons in the world that don't have a work, don't have money because this pandemic and this quarantine, and they can't, if they can't pay the schools for their children or their apartment or their food, how can they pay for mental, sorry, that's a call. They can't pay for help in mental issues. They can go to a hospital to, well, now no one can go here to a hospital, or it's better not to go because COVID. But I hope you understand that mental health is a cost, and I feel responsible for it, and I invite everyone here to talk about this and make it a democratized matter for everyone.
Just picking up on what you last say, we have a question regarding, so what if somebody feels that they are too afraid or ashamed to talk about how they are feeling, even to their close ones? What kind of advice could you give to someone that is very ashamed to share how they feel? So maybe they won't even seek help, even if they can, because they feel, no, nobody should know about this, it's too embarrassing. So the question is, what advice could you give to that person?
That's very common in life. I know many beloved persons that have an issue, a mental issue problem, and they don't speak. I think that I was remembering, I don't know if you saw Grey's Anatomy.
I think a lot of people hearing you have.
Well, I saw it 5 times. The whole chapters, the whole thing. My children, they're not children. I thought I was a little bit ill because it, and they laugh about it. But for me, it was it was an entertainment, and I was very interesting in different things. But what I want to say today is that I remember always a saying that Derek, remember
the protagonist,
one of the protagonists, he always said when he went in ward to make surgery, first he said, this is the best day to save people. I don't know if it's literally, but that's the idea. He always said that in a very sweet way to invitate the other persons that were there to make a team, and the goal was to give life to that person that was there. Francisca talked about putting, I don't know if it is nominating a plant with my name, and see how I take care of that plant being me. And that's a very good idea. But what I want to say for answering the question, or trying to answer the question, is I can't save any life if I don't begin to by saving my life. And my life is not only what you see, because I physically can look well, but maybe in my internal world, I am very, very bad, very bad, or painfulness, right? Mm-hmm. So the first step is to recognize to myself that I'm living something, a chaos, an internal chaos. If I recognize it, if I put it in words in my mind, if I write it, that's a very good work in therapy.
Yes, to write it.
To write it, because it's not the same to think something that to write it, and you can see it, you can look at it. There is a testimony, there is a history that is already there, physically there. So that's the first point. Recognize and accept without judging yourself that you are living, you're suffering something, whatever it is. Maybe there are no good reasons for it, and you just gave not a good interpretation of a situation, or whatever it is. But if you are feeling bad, recognize it first to yourself. We tend to use my English, evadir.
We avoid. We avoid.
We avoid, right? I have to go again to school. We tend, or many people tend to avoid what's happening to herself or himself. So how can I go out and talk to another one, or say help to a professional one, if I am avoiding what is happening to me? That's very important. Why it is very important? Because you may be healthy now in your body, but if you are not healthy in your mind, there's a very other good sentence, or something like that, that says, if your mouth doesn't talk, your body will
do the talking.
Wow, will
express everything. Yeah,
will shout. I remember the word now. Will shout. And how does the body shout? By getting sick. Maybe it's just something very small, but maybe it can turn that you are avoiding, you are not recognizing, you are not accepting, you are judging that you can feel that way, because you will be not a worth person, not the one others are expecting, not the one you are expecting. So if you don't get in charge, if you don't be, you don't get, or you don't be responsible of what is occurring to you, you are going to get sick. Your relationships with your beloved ones are going to be in conflict. For sure, your studies or your work will be in problems. Whatever you do, your sports, your friends, your partner relationship, whatever. There's no possibility if someone doesn't recognize his or her problem, and recognize it and accept it, not judge it, and does something by himself or herself, or just look for help. There's no possibility to have a good life. And we are here to have a good life, because if not, why are we here? A good life doesn't mean a perfect life, because perfection doesn't exist. Happiness or well-being is not the same as a perfect life. We will always have problems. We will always have, as positive psychology says, we will always have negative emotions, but our main due or work in life is to have abundance of positive emotions, and without the absence of negative emotions, but this way, not this way, and not this way, right?
I think a lot of people have found your words, like they have thought about these things as well. Some people on Instagram and also on Zoom have said that sometimes they do feel that. They do feel that they are trying to cope with life. So to put their best face and to keep going, and then the body start feeling bad. And at first we can get very angry at ourselves, like, come on, help me, I need to be productive. And then our body, like you said, is shouting. And I wanted to finish with one question that a person had. So you were talking about how sometimes it's very important to try first to listen to ourselves, and then sometimes we can actually learn and cross that barrier and ask for help. But what happens after? So the question is, if I'm a professional that is not working on mental health, but maybe a doctor, or even if I'm a student or if I'm a friend, and somebody comes to me and said, I feel sad or I feel very bad, what can I do if I feel that I don't have the knowledge to help that person? What can I do? What kind of answer? Should I tell them, ask for help? Should I hug them? So I don't know if you have, I don't think we have a general advice, but what are your thoughts around how can we help if somebody reaches us?
Yesterday I made in Spanish, I think a good live in Instagram. I don't think it will be very practical for you to see me at that live, because it is in Spanish. But this was one of the matters we talk about. What can we do when we see another one with pain or suffering, or avoiding or whatever? Because when we know someone, we don't need the person to use verbal communication. If we know someone, we can know that person is not in a good mood by non-verbal communication, which is more important. 93 of the comparability of persons are in non-verbal communication, not in verbal communication. I can say, oh, yes, I'm fine. Yes, I'm doing good. And you know that I'm not doing good because I don't look at your eyes, because my way of talking, etc. So what can I do with another one? The first thing is never judge another one that says or not says that he or she is being ill or feels bad or whatever. Don't judge that person, because if that person demonstrated or says it, sorry if I make some errors about English, it is because that person is really in a bad moment. I remember what happens with abuse, with abuse or abuse. The women and the men that say that after 20 years they are saying, I was abused by this person or this other one. One of the things that matters to them for not saying it is because they feel they will be judged, they will not be believed, right? Because people say, oh, but why did you were dressing that way, or why did you go to with that person to his room when it has to be, when it is related to church or to a family member or whatever, or to a man or woman in the streets. So we can go near that person and we can say to that person, I feel, no, I know, I feel that you are not feeling quite well, because I love you, because I appreciate you. I would like to tell you that I'm here. If you want to talk, if you want to receive help, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And that's a very good beginning. Maybe the person is not going to talk that occasion, but since then, even if I'm not a professional person in our matter, I have the responsibility to continue taking care, not getting in charge, because no one can get in charge of another, but we can help the charge of the other persons. So if the charge of the other person is like what we're talking now, I must stay nearby. That's one of the ways. For real, there are many other ways I can tell the person. I know someone that is very professional and a very good one. Since I myself, Alejandra Bail, I had depression, I am working with my patients, with my psychiatric. I don't tell them, or some of them that are in depression, I share with them that this was one of the persons who helped me to be very happy and very in well-being. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have problems, or I hope I don't have another depression. So I can help others, also giving them information of someone or some things to do. And this is the last thing. One of the very important things we must do today, because it is important, the other psychologists that talked about mindfulness. I just want to finish talking about respiration.
Breathing.
That is breathing, right? Breathing. Some people here say respire, but it's breathing, right? So when we see someone is feeling very bad, we can also get near that person, or if we are near that person, and we can say, you want to talk, I want to help you, and if you don't want to talk now, believe in me and let me help you to breathe because when you breathe, this is not only a meditation process. It is the only way I can be connected with my life and with life. And this is not a poetical declaration. This is a scientific. This comes from neuroscience. When I breathe, I inhalate and exhalation. I am wanting or not wanting, by my will or not by my will, I'm connecting with myself. I am bringing calm to my mind. And when I calm myself, I can think, what am I going to do with all the thoughts I have that are probably not real, because I have to use the scientific method to confirm if my thoughts about anything. We're all gonna die because the pandemic. This country will never go out from the pandemic. So yesterday I was saying, and I finish now, to my audience, there were my children saying, do this, oh, it's very good, oh, but it was in Spanish.
We can help you translate it after.
Sorry?
But we can help you translate all of that after, maybe.
Yeah. What I was going to say, I forgot. I was talking about breathing.
Yes.
That I talked about how does, I'm not talking about that now, but how does the human being functions. Thoughts, emotions, actions, results, and those results give feedback to my thoughts. The only things I can control, if I can control something, are my thoughts. So in Chile, we are in several problems about the pandemic. There are many persons who have died, many persons who are infected. But if I am at home alone or with my family or whatever, I'm thinking always this will not pass. Then I can go to a very good news. We don't have to be hearing news all the time now, because we're going to get mad, but we have to do it at least once a day to know what is happening in the world. And last week, the first minister of New Zealand, who is a woman, and I say it very proudly, because there's a study about this and the pandemic, made a world declaration that New Zealand has no more COVID. So in Chile, example, this pandemic will never pass away. Of course it will, maybe in more months than another or than other countries, because we're not very disciplined and other things, but it will pass, and we will again hug our beloved ones and have a better life if we use these moments as a pause, and we do many things, but the most important, we are occupied of our, not only our physical, but our mental health, and we work to do things and be a happy person. This is the moment, because after this, we're going to begin again running everywhere, and we will not have the opportunity to do this. Thank you very much, and sorry for my English, but I have to not study again, but
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and especially because it's your second language. So I know, like, for a fact, it's very hard because we are thinking in Spanish and we need to translate it as we speak. And I just wanted to finish with saying one of the phrases that you said, that we have a responsibility for everyone and to ourselves to be mental health activists, because it's something that we need to keep fighting for. We need to be an active agent of mental health for ourselves and for others. So I just wanted to thank you for your time and for reminding that. And of course, you're welcome to stay for as long as we still, because we have 2 other people talking. And
I know.
thank you so much. And people are saying thank you also on the chat and on Instagram.
Thank you very much.
You. Do we have Emma there?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Emma.
Very hungry.
Well, we have to listen to your body, like Alejandra said.
I know, right? It was saying pita chips, but the other one wasn't. So you know what I'm like? I've got like a full transcript here of everything I'm going to say, because otherwise I'll just keep
Everyone
going.
has their style, so no problem.
That is my style.
Just remind people what your main topic is going to be. So we have Emma with us now. She's a King's student.
Yeah, so I'm a student midwife at King's, soon to go into my final year, which is absolutely terrifying, but it's happening. So for sort of, it might be a little bit less than 15 minutes. I've only got 2 A4 sides, so I wasn't. So I'm sort of going to give you a little bit of an insight on my personal journey with mental health and how adjustments have been implemented into my degree in order to not only help me continue studying, but also to help me thrive. I hope everyone can hear me. I normally shout, so I'm really sorry. You've got headphones. No worries. Pita chips. So I'm going to talk about me, essentially. But I would just like to say that before I do start, I am very honest and I'm very frank about my my experiences, and that will also include mentions of self-harm and suicide. So if there are any listeners here now, or if you're on YouTube listening later, just as a little bit of a trigger warning. So I'll start with me. In my teenage years, I had gone through cycles of various concoctions of medications, therapies, diagnoses, and even at 24, I'm still unable to remember a time of not being unwell. I faced ridicule in school for the signs of self-harm on my body, and the lack of continuity in my care forced me to disengage from formal help at a fairly young age. At 18, I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act due to an attempt to take my own life, and the sudden transition from child mental health care to adult care was startling. I left college with substandard grades and vowed to never return to formal education in the worry I was too broken to do so. I spent years jumping between casual jobs, feeling lost and without a purpose, until I had a genuine epiphany moment, which sounds really cringe. It was late in the afternoon. I was still in my pajamas. I hadn't brushed my teeth or made any attempt at trying to be human, which is a common effect of my depression. Sometimes I'm just genuinely lazy, but and I was watching a programme about train stations from around the world, and I apologise to any listeners who are very interested in global train stations, but I am not. So being incredibly bored, my mind took me to another place, and it was one that felt right for the first time in so many years, and it was in midwifery. So fast forward the access course and the personal statements and the interviews. In 2018, I accepted my place to study my BSc in midwifery here at King's. And since that moment, it has felt like my life has been on a spin cycle that just hasn't really stopped. in such a competitive environment as well. It has pushed me to limits I did not think were possible. I have had relapses, I have self-harmed, I have missed shifts, and I constantly question my ability and compare myself to my peers. But coming back from each dark place reminds me that it is possible. Self-exploration has been intrinsic for me, and I've applied the keep your friends close and your enemies closer tactic to my conditions. Instead of pushing it away, I've worked to dissect and understand it. This given me an advantage in anticipating possible relapses and an understanding of how it can fit into my life and not consume it. I used to believe occupational health were the enemy, but they've been vital in implementing adjustments, such as a 6-month period of no night shifts and space shifts on placement, as well as referrals to cognitive behavioural therapy. The university's disability support allows me to have extra time when required and quiet environment to take exams in. I've learnt that there are only so many problems I can sweep under the carpet before it becomes noticeable. Utilising available support systems means that just in over a year's time, at the ripe old age of 25, having vowed to never return to education, I will be a qualified midwife. And not only will I be a qualified midwife, but I will be one with an ongoing mental health illness. If you told 18-year-old Emma that this was possible, I would have told you to do one. However, it is important that we recognise and remember that in just 6 years between 2011 and 2017, at least 307 NHS nurses alone took their lives. These are not only statistics, but they are stories that speak truths of a health service under pressure and in crisis. For the healthcare student to healthcare students, the Nursing and Midwifery Code ensures that we uphold the standards of prioritising people, and within that you should include yourself, as it is vital to care for yourself when caring for others. That's me. There you go, look, nice and swift, up the way, script done.
Thank you so much. And like people are saying in the chat, you are very brave, because one of the questions that we had in the other speaker was like, what if I don't feel brave enough to share? And you have shared 25 years of your life, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
In a very good way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I also get asked quite a lot, how do you feel about caring for women with mental health illnesses? And for me, it's completely separate. I keep my personal life and my professional life as separate as possible. And a lot of people would say, hey, actually, yeah, I use my experiences to help others, but that's not actually, I've never really done that, because I've always kept them quite separate. But yeah, a lot of people do ask me that. A lot of people also like to tell me that I don't seem ill, which is nice, I suppose. But I have quite high functioning mental illness, which I actually think that, and not to blanket millennials, I think a lot of millennials do have, you know, a lot of us do kind of get up, go to uni, go to work, kind of pretend that, you know, we're all okay. And the biggest thing for me was, you know, just saying I'm really not all right. And I've had to do it quite a few times in this degree. I've had times where, you know, I've self-harmed, and I've had to openly talk to lecturers about that. I've had times where, you know, I'm absent from shifts, and because I've had a mental health relapse, I cannot physically pick up the phone to tell someone that. So there have been adjustments made. And I think that's probably the most important thing that I want people to take away from this, is that you can be a student in any field, and you can have mental health illnesses, and there are services within your university that are there to support you. And I think it's a massive step in utilising those services to the best of your abilities. So even if you don't consider your mental health illness to be a disability, even reaching forth to disability and saying, hey, yeah, my anxiety has really affected my exams in the past. Is it okay if I sit in a separate room? That's fine. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for the minimum. They want you to do the best. They don't want you to fail. So I think it's, yeah, utilize the services that are available and find out what's out there, because there is a lot of help out there. I mean, yeah, even sitting here and talking about it, it's therapeutic. I'm very open about my mental health. I always have been. I'm kind of the person who a lot of people do come to ask, and that's never pressured me. I've always been happy to do that, because, and it's quite, you feel quite honoured. You feel quite honoured that people look at you as someone that they can trust and someone that they can talk to about that. And it's not, you can't always be the problem solver. And I think that's something really important to remember, is that you don't always have to be the problem solver. You can be the person who points someone in a direction of someone who can help. So not taking it all on yourself, but even just being the person that they can come to initially and just saying, you know, hey, have you spoken to disability at uni, or have you spoken to occupational health? Just even being able to pass on that advice is really important. So yeah, that's me.
I'm hearing so much resilience in everything that you say, and in how you tell your story, and you even try to tell Emma of like 18 how things are going to get a little bit better sometimes, and how that will be hard to believe. And maybe people are here right now, they may be feeling like that, or they may be feeling there's no hope for me because I will feel like this all of my life. But sometimes we don't see a possible future, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And your story, I think, is a good inspiration for that. It's not going to be easy, for sure. It's not going to be something that you wake up tomorrow and all the problems of the world are solved, but you are able to have so much resilience and to see the resources that you have. And even with all that you're struggling, you're able to even help other people. And for people out there that want to help people, sometimes we feel paralyzed and we feel, I don't have all the skills, so I'm better saying nothing. But sometimes saying, are you having a good day? Or do you want to talk? Or do you want to do nothing for an hour? Can be a very important difference for someone. So you don't have to say the perfect advice. Just by being there, sometimes you can save a life even. And I just wanted to finish a little bit what you were saying with, sometimes we question ourselves, and there's a big stigma in mental health, and we say, why me? Why me? Why do I have to go to special like education programs? And I think the question can be, why not me? The word with so much pressure, in not even for the mental health professionals or health professionals, to everyone, to be productive all the time, to be happy all the time, to have the best friends, to have the best body, to show all your privilege, but only in a good way. So we have so many things going on that sometimes, and relating this to everything, if we feel, okay, what if I'm straight? What if I'm a man and I'm white and I'm privileged? I have nothing to complain about. But sometimes you are hiding so much pain inside that you feel you don't have the right to voice that out.
And that's what I really admired, Alejandra, what you said when you referred to it as mental pain, because although that, you know, that seems quite deep, it seems like a deep thing to refer it to, but that's what it is. It's a mental pain, it's a mental suffering. If, you know, I always, there's the very cliche example of, you know, if you broke your leg, you'd go to A&E and get it fixed. But just because you can't see mental health doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fixed, because it is a pain, it is a suffering. Like, there are not many other illnesses that you can have for 24 years and know that you're probably going to live with it for the majority of the rest of your life, and it be okay, because it's not okay. It is pain, it is suffering, and that's what I really admire, the fact that you referred to it as that.
Yeah, because it's painful. It hurts. Even if other people cannot see it, it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think stories like yours are always something that we need to keep in mind. And of course, like the disclosure that you said, we don't need to expose ourselves to things that maybe we are not ready for. But eventually it's good to voice out some things that we are feeling. And just to know that other people are feeling the same, sometimes it makes you feel better and less guilty. Like, oh, other people are feeling anxious. Yeah. Yeah.
See, that makes me smile. That's
on camera. That's also
that sorted me out.
To help people is to have a dog on camera.
We've had a cat. We had a cat earlier on camera. I don't know if you saw it.
No. Yeah, but animals are a good way of connecting as well. So again, I wanted to say thank you, Emma, for being so honest and so open, and to share how this journey has been for you, and still a lot to go. And
yeah.
for us, like health professionals, we need to remember that we also need to be the patient sometimes, because sometimes we get so good in postponing our own needs, and then we are so tired we cannot even help other people. So we need to have that reciprocity with ourselves as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Fran, and thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate it. So
thank you for sharing. We have Ellie now, and of course, Emma, you're welcome to stay here if anybody else have questions for Emma.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to you, Ellie. Come on, let's do this.
So Ellie, we have you now.
Hello. Well, couple of things. Thank you to anyone who stayed. I know it's late. And also, I'm not burnt. I just have pink walls, and it makes me, doesn't give me the best complexion late at night. But yes, my name is Ellie. I said at the beginning, I'm 22. I'm doing my master's in public mental health at Queen Mary's. And today I'm going to talk about two things. One is I'm leading on to why I started my own podcast, which deals with mental health, particularly in this kind of transitional period, kind of being young adolescent into young adult. But why I started the podcast was my own experience. And I think even something like this is my first experience of kind of like a public sort of, I don't know, speaking, webinar, whatever. And it's kind of amazing that in like an hour and a bit you can connect with so many different things that people have said, even though you've never met them. And I think that's what I have found so powerful. Just articulating emotions, I think is just like the most incredible tool, especially within mental health. So that's what I've kind of like prided myself on. But just kind of give a sort of backstory. So I think I was about 14, and I was a little bit chubby, and it got rudely pointed out to me at school, and then I became incredibly self-conscious. I just lost myself in what I look like, and I became very controlling about what I ate, and it just sort of turned into this perfectionism on steroids. Obviously, I know I shouldn't joke about that being in mental health, but it really was like it just took over everything, what I looked like. I became obsessed about grades I got. It was a really difficult time. I definitely developed body dysmorphia. I had an incredibly low self-esteem. But kind of like things that people have alluded to before, it just came down to, I don't know what it turned into. I don't know if it's because I'm one of 4. I've got 3 brothers. I didn't really have anything. They all played football. I didn't really do many extracurriculars. So I just threw my sort of worth into grades, and I thought that was sort of like all I was good for. But yeah, and I've always been incredibly hard on myself. But it just came down to, I didn't like getting things wrong. I didn't like making mistakes. Obviously, plot twist, nothing in life always goes the way you think it's going to go. You fail all the time, and making mistakes is how we learn and how we grow. But I couldn't accept that back then. That was it wasn't part of my nature. I couldn't get things wrong. So kind of like what people said earlier, it just builds up. Like, you sweep it under the rug, but it was never going to last. This sort of like I don't know, just sort of thinking I was invincible, so to speak. But then I got into uni. So I went to Birmingham to do politics and philosophy, and I hadn't done either before uni. And I think it was my second year where the workload stepped up, and I just didn't get it. But not being able to ask for help, rather than say, like, I don't understand this dense philosophy. What do you mean an orange might not be orange? Just sounds silly. And also, you go to uni to challenge your worldviews and your mindset. And I've said it right, the course on philosophy, so of course I wasn't going to know everything. But I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear not knowing what I was doing. That turned into really bad panic attacks. That turned into not sleeping, not eating, my kind of not being able to control kind of my course and getting that right, because I thought that was the be all and end all. I really began then to control my food. And that was really tough, because my housemates were only 18 at the time, or 19. And they just saw me become like a shell of myself. So I had this really bad panic attack one night, and they just said, look, that's it. We're taking you to the uni GP, and you're going to get seen. Now, as soon as I heard the words depression and anxiety, like I said earlier, I didn't take mental health seriously until mine got knocked for 6. I heard, depression and anxiety, that's for people who can't cope. Not me. I'm what do you mean? No, I'm fine. Obviously I wasn't fine. So that was really tough. But interestingly, when I rang my parents, and I'm like one of the 4 children, I'm the one they never had to worry about, never behaved badly. Me kind of saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I really need help. It was actually like the beginning again for our relationship, because they were able to be around me. I know that I was not particularly nice to be around when I was in my teenage years, because I was so controlling. I just couldn't have fun. And like what you were saying earlier about like your physicality, it shows. I was just closed off. So that was weirdly really quite good, I think, for them. They were kind of, I could be their child again. I think I confused independence, and that became quite lonely. So it's still tricky, like we said earlier, so apologies. It doesn't happen overnight. Just because you kind of flag something up, it means it's fixed. It was still a very sad Christmas. But I did some counselling back in Birmingham, which the uni organised, so they did really well. Now, for someone who has always been very confident, but not talking about her emotions and things she doesn't like, that first counselling session, she was not going to talk. I was going to do all the talking, and I was so uncomfortable. We only did it 6 weeks, and it was every other week. But by the end, I was almost like, oh, that's it? Oh, what? And I became so comfortable with saying the things that made me anxious, because I realized that you say it out loud and the world doesn't stop. It's okay. You're not met with judgment, shame, people thinking you're weird. Sitting in, I don't know if anyone has been to counselling, but sitting kind of in a waiting room, you have to tick out a form, and you kind of have to like grade certain emotions you're feeling. And obviously kind of seeing some of the things I was feeling on a page, I was a bit like, that realization I really did need to be here, because there was obviously a huge part of denial for the beginning part. But yeah, so that was sort of the end of my second year, and I'd already accepted my place to go on a year abroad to Melbourne from my first year. which I kind of finished second year by the skin of my teeth, because a lot of my work I had to delay. A lot of my work, because I wasn't very good, I didn't plagiarize as in I copied words. I just didn't use quotation marks in the correct places. So yeah, a few marks deducted there. But then I was off to Melbourne, and my mum was so worried about me. But you go off to the other side of the world where you don't know anyone, and I had 2 roommates for the whole year. You don't really have a choice but to be vulnerable, because it's not really gonna, I don't know what you're gonna achieve. But it was amazing, and like it's what's kind of happened tonight. You meet people from all across the world, from Europe, from different bits of America, and you'll say something and they'll be like, I felt that too. And there was just these loads of light bulb moments, and I was like, this is crazy, but also how fun that now I'm able to talk about how I'm feeling. Like bonds feel closer, and like Andrew was saying earlier, like your loved ones can be around you again, and that was really nice. So I think I just grew in confidence, in owning sort of getting things wrong, having bad days, having anxiety, having previous mental health issues. And I came back to Birmingham. It was a shock to the system coming back from Melbourne. But then I finished my final year, and I just got really into just talking about how I was feeling. And then I did my undergrad dissertation on the effect of Instagram usage on young women's body image and satisfaction. So I was beginning to kind of put my things out there, and it an amazing response. I kind of did this survey, and hundreds of girls filled it out, and it's almost like people have been, there's also an element where it's like, once you kind of raise your hand and go, I'm not perfect, people really love that. Actually, people don't like being around people that seem perfect all the time and don't get things wrong. People really like being around other imperfect people. So since then, that was a year ago, I've basically just been building on that. And so the podcast idea came about then, because, as I'm sure you are already bored of my voice, I love to talk now, but it's been really fun kind of obviously it started off with me begging my friends to be my guinea pigs and be part of my project, but it's grown into something really nice, which is, so it's called Practice Makes Progress. So it's dismantling this idea of perfection that used to really hold me back, and just saying, just bit by bit, we're going to get there. So like even Emma, you saying like having relapses, it's about the times that we get back up. It's not always about the times that we fall down. And I think that's it's really been very therapeutic for me to let go of this kind of, there's one way for success to look, happiness to look, beauty to look. And that's just been really freeing, not just for me, but I think other people. So we've covered body image, obviously, my own experiences with that, PTSD, depression, anxiety, grief, addiction, even like I've just said, like forgiving yourself, like forgiving your past self, maybe not being that nice, and looking forward to the future. So yeah, it's been quite a rapid, I think, sort of recovery process. And that's sort of where I'm at now. So yeah, it's just about like getting rid of the stigma, and yeah, just enjoying life a bit more, and letting people enjoy me. So that is,
I think we do the exercise that you said, and we ask the people that have their camera on to raise their hand if they feel they're not perfect. We will probably have everybody putting their hand up.
Yeah.
Or
both hands and feet. Yeah.
Anybody here that feels like sometimes they have too much anxiety as well, and maybe they will raise their hands as well. Have you ever think, okay, you know what, that's it, I'm not going to continue with this, I need a break?
Yeah.
Again, or I feel lonely, I don't feel I have any friends, and again.
Yeah.
So I think when we see that, this image is also very powerful, because like you said, in social media sometimes, now with the pandemic, we have social media 24/7. We see people coping perfectly with everything, and sometimes maybe they're a god, but usually it's because they don't share the other side.
Exactly.
That's not what you are supposed to do on social media. like what
Yeah.
you said with body image as well.
Absolutely, yeah, so much, and it's a highlight reel, and not that these things shouldn't be celebrated. Like, you know, if you get a job or you've had an amazing day out, of course you should share them. I don't want to, you know, take the light out of social media, but when you're feeling down and you're sitting there, and like people said earlier about self-comparison, I'm sitting there and I'm going, 200 people just had a great day and I feel really rubbish today, and feeling alone in that for so many years really held me back. So I think it's about kind of getting rid of that facade that so many of us try and keep up. But like someone said earlier, that doesn't also mean that I don't have bad days. So just because I'm out there encouraging other people to own them, I am not immune from feeling anxious or feeling down or picking apart bits of my body. So it's just about also, like Emma was saying, when people say that you look better, you look recovered, it's also mental health will also look different for absolutely everyone. And I think it's really important showing a variety of people so I probably look like I don't struggle, or I'm like quite high functioning, but it doesn't mean that I can't struggle. So that's been it's been a really fun project. We've got a feature at the moment for Pride Month last month, so it's called Beyond Pride. So it's also affecting like the particular sort of mental health struggles of the LGBT community, kind of minorities within minorities, and like struggles that they go through. So it's so it's just hopefully that can grow. But I agree with you. It's been been a very powerful tool. I think conversation is just
it can be very powerful sometimes. And I also think with this comment, oh, but you don't look so sad. Sometimes without we wanted to, we make people like almost need to show they're sad.
Yes.
Maybe they're happy and maybe they want to go to that birthday party. Well, maybe not now in pandemic, but and they're like, but I shouldn't, because everyone is going to ask me, oh, so now you're feeling good. Oh, so it wasn't that bad. And sometimes we meant that with our biggest heart and love, but we can take it as like, okay, so I should be sad all the time, all day, because you won't believe me. And I think that's something that we need to deconstruct, because if not, it's going to be very hard to be open. And I wanted to ask you one question, if you can answer before we end with this part and I show you the video of the last speaker. What would you advise, or what was your experience if somebody now was hearing you and they're like, yeah, you know, some people have said I should see someone to help me, but I really don't want to go there to talk to a stranger. What do you think it was the difference from the first session to I really don't want to be here to I want more?
Absolutely. I think again, it just comes back to the stigma, kind of like having to take medication or having to go to therapy. But therapy is amazing. It's really hard to trust and be vulnerable. And also because there is an element for me, it's like once I've put something out there, I can't take it back. So I understand the kind of like initial hesitancy. But I think it's almost, sometimes it can be quite nice to talk to someone that doesn't know you, because I think sometimes with your friends, with your like for example, my parents, I might have been too scared to say something in case they were really worried about me, or or what if they didn't reply the way that I wanted them to. Actually, it could be quite nice to kind of be around someone that doesn't know you, and you can kind of talk to them like a blank canvas, because they don't know you from before. So they've kind of, I don't know, I actually found it weirdly a safer space, because I could, that they've heard it all. And that's the other thing, especially someone, obviously they've been trained, they probably, the woman that had me had been doing it for 40 years. So I think knowing that that's what they're there to do was a really, really big help. But yeah, if anyone listening either now or from the YouTube does have that, and I can kind of give you further tips, because I probably haven't said everything I want to just then yeah, please feel free to.
I just wanted to point it out that it has to feel like a safe space.
Yeah.
So if anybody there now is having help, like maybe a professional of mental health or any type, and you don't feel safe enough or you feel not comfortable enough, that's okay, because not everybody is a fit for everyone. So maybe you can ask for a different person, and that's completely fine. So don't give up just because you feel in the first sessions you don't click, because we're so different and we are so many different people that sometimes the psychologist that works for me doesn't work with for my friend, and that's not because therapy is not for me. It's because that person.
Just to end on, it's very funny you say that, because both my parents work full time, and we had she must have been about maybe 50 or so at the time, but a child mind would come in the morning, come and pick us up from school. And when I first sat down with this counsellor, I was kind of like, I'm not sure if this is going to fit. But then she reminded me of that woman that had looked after me for so many years, and kind of I found that a weird bond, that it was almost like I was talking to a figure. So I think it's a completely valid point you make, like feeling like that relationship is going to work is also very important. So I will stop talking now.
So thank you again, and please visit her podcast. Is Practice Make Progress. She has an Instagram and she has talks as well, and maybe I'm going to be joining one in the future. And people are here,
anyone is welcome.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now show you 5 minutes of the last speaker, just because I really wanted to conclude all the talks and everything that has been said with how important it is to listen to our body and to make time to breathe, to be an activist for mental health, to be able to share, even if it's only with ourselves, how we're feeling, like Emma said, and then to make something out of that, like what Ellie said, and be productive, but not in excess. Just like, is this making sense to me? Do I want to talk about it? Oh, and then the podcast idea came through. So her name is Daniela, and she's also a psychologist. So let's see if you can see. Can you see the video? Yes? Perfect.
Hi, my name is Daniela Seu. I'm a psychotherapist and a yoga teacher. I think that we can talk about mental health without talking about health in general, because they're not separate things. The mind affects the body and the body affects the mind. So in this way, I think we should be asking, how can I be healthier in general, or what can I actually do or stop doing in order to help ourselves to be healthier, in order to help myself to be healthier. I think holistic or integral disciplines like yoga have a lot to give us in this matter, because they help us in different ways. They make us, for instance, move our bodies, calm our emotions or our minds, and let us see the world in a different way. It's not just like some activity you can do in order to be a little more healthier. Instead, it's a discipline you commit with. So it's like a practice you should do every day or for a long period of time, to be in a different state of mind, of self, but in general, not just in one aspect of yourself. I think that is actually the only way we could truly improve our health. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of tips that you can follow to try to improve your mental health. But I think if you don't commit with this different view of the world and of yourself, you're not going to be able to actually make an improvement in that area. Now, in this context in particular, with the pandemic and everything, we should do a bigger effort to achieve what I just said, because the causes of stress are more than ever. Our world changed, and we are really anxious and scared. We are realizing that we live in an uncertain world where we can predict what is going to happen. That it is what reality is, in fact, every day, all the time. But now we see it. We can see it more like in front of our eyes. It's something happening, what is happening right now. So when we can really make some changes is when we are in crisis. In this moment, this particular moment, it just depends on everybody to make some good ones, to make some good choices. In this way, I think what we really can do to improve our mental health is to make a conscious decision, is to really connect with ourselves, listen to ourselves, and then make a good choice, make a good decision, make a conscious decision. And as I said before, it's not like just something you do in one particular moment. Is a way to see things. It's a state of your whole self. So I think this experience is has a little potential, a big potential in this area, where we can benefit. Thank you.
So I think taking Daniela's thoughts into account and everything that everyone has been sharing is, we usually put our minds in some task 24/7. So we have to be productive 24/7. We have to be the best student 24/7, the best professional, the best, I don't know, boyfriend, girlfriend, the best friend, the best daughter, the best son. And I think if we move that aside, what we do have to have in mind 24/7 is our mental health. But not in the sense that our mental health has to be perfect and we need to be happy. It's just to be aware that it's there, it's existing, and we have a relationship with our world. So if something is happening outside, it's going to affect us in a lot of ways. And I think what she said is about uncertainty, it's something very key. And we in systemic thinking have a concept of Barry Mason that's like unsafe uncertainty and safe uncertainty. So uncertainty is going to happen. We have no way of knowing 100% what's going to happen tomorrow, if all of our plans and wishes are going to come true, if everything that we are putting effort today is going to be something that we are actually even going to be interested in tomorrow. But we need to feel a little bit safe enough to at least try. And I think that's what everyone here is doing, even though sometimes we are struggling very hard with our own mental health, or with our families or friends, because it's very systemic. So if my mother is feeling bad, that's going to have an impact on me. And the same, if I'm feeling bad, that's going to have an impact on people. And I think if we acknowledge that that's something that's happening all the time, that's going to give us a lot of more commitment to ourselves. So we need to commit to ourselves as well. And the connection that every one of you have stuck in one moment to others and to ourselves and to our emotions, I think is key. And yeah. Well, now I'm going to open the conversation. I'm laughing because I'm reading your comment, Emma, about your ships. And I really want to say again, thank you to everyone that's here, everybody that has been listening. And we need to have laughter. I think humor is something so important for our mental health and for our world, to have humor. And I don't know if you remember, but the first days of the pandemic, we have so many memes on the coronavirus, like so many. They at least made my day, and I laughed so much about that, even though I was worried a lot, like most of the time. That helped me a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone also listening, because listening is a big part of this. And I wanted to open the conversation if anybody wants to comment something, say something funny. This is the moment, of course. So you can unmute yourself, Ellie.
I'm creasing. I'm sorry, I've sat here, I'm trying not to laugh.
It's okay.
So funny.
But just tell the jokes so everybody can laugh.
Oh God, I can't believe she burnt the pita chips as well. I'm actually fuming.
It's not meant to be.
It's just not meant to be.
Don't attempt to do chips at home, people.
I've got one pita left now, and I'm not. I'm not cooking it. I'm eating it raw.
Yeah.
Many
I'm
more.
happy to end this talk with some laughter. So
Yeah, go for it. Laugh at my expense. I
Yeah.
love it.
It's been amazing, honestly. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. That was lovely to listen to
Aw.
you. Really nice. Hopefully, I can sneak in on your podcast
Yeah.
sometime. I would
Of course
love
you
that.
could.
I'd really love that.
And yours. How did you get so embarrassed?
yeah, with some laughter in the chat as well, and claps from Anibal and people here in the Instagram live as well. So just
Thank you.
thank you.
How does it work with when people can access it?
YouTube, probably in a couple of days.
Perfect.
I'm going to send all of you the link. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Just again saying thank you, and for everybody still listening, next week we are going to have a tea talk as well, and it's going to be about body positivity. So everyone again is welcome to join, either as a speaker to share some questions or just to listen. It will be at 7:30 next Tuesday, the 14th of July, about body positivity. So thank you again for that.